My wife said we were helping the homeless. $10,000 wired to a cause with no address. She smiled while her ex drove a new Audi and called me generous. I didn't yell. I printed statements, recorded phone calls, froze our joint. Account at 2:14 a.m. She showed up mid-shift in the ER, mascara running, screaming about trust. I didn't blink. I hit play. But what the investigator told me next, I wasn't ready for that. You ever give someone your whole heart, plus $10,000, and still feel like the fool? I'm Ethan, 27, nurse, night shift warrior, married to Sophie, 26, bright, bold, heart-on-her-sleeve activist. At least that's what she called herself. She made passion look like a virtue. Made every march, every fundraiser, every petition feel urgent, powerful, noble. We were that couple everyone envied. She had a following online. I had purpose in the trauma bay. Our life, steady, predictable. Weekends were for farmers markets and fundraisers. Nights were late dinners and takeout with documentary voiceovers in the background. We had an emergency fund, $10,000. Hard-earned, slow-built. Call it the invisible net beneath our lives. Car repairs, medical bills, broken boiler. We were ready for it all. Until Sophie walked into the kitchen one Sunday morning in her "Change starts here" hoodie and dropped the sentence that cracked everything. Ethan, I want us to donate the emergency fund. I blinked, mid-sip of coffee. To what? She smiled. Like I was the one out of touch. To Hope Catalyst. It's a new charity I'm helping launch. We're fighting housing injustice, eviction crises, systemic displacement. It's everything we talk about. We weren't launching anything. She was, and she wasn't doing it alone. Tyler's co-directing it, she added, like she hadn't just punched the air out of the room. Tyler from college? Yeah, but this isn't about that. It's about impact. He's reformed, focused, brilliant with donors. Tyler, the same ex who used to crash on couches and post shirtless activism rants? Him? I stayed quiet. Listened. She went on about shelters, resource pipelines, a nonprofit model that cut overhead in half. She sounded like she believed it. Maybe she did. I hesitated. Soph, 10 grand's a lot. It's sitting in an account, doing nothing. We could help real people. She reached for my hand. You said you wanted us to be bigger than ourselves. This is bigger, I caved. Because sometimes love isn't rational. It's a tide, and it pulled me right over the edge. We transferred the $10,000 the next day. She hugged me, eyes shining. This means more than you know. She was right, but not in the way I thought. At the time, I didn't know there were no office spaces, no 501c3 status, no outreach teams, just a pretty lie wrapped in cause-driven packaging, and a man with a perfect smile draining my life behind. The scenes, but that came later. First came silence, and then came the excuses. Weeks passed. No thank you letter, no newsletter, no update, just a growing silence, the kind that buzzes in your gut when something's wrong and no one says it out loud. Sophie was busy, too busy. Meetings, calls, strategy sessions. Always with Tyler. She'd smile when she said his name, like I was supposed to be proud they were doing the work. But every time I asked, how's the charity going? I got fog. Slow start. Legal stuff. We're finalizing partnerships. Nonprofits don't move fast, babe. I knew that. What I didn't know was where our $10,000 had gone. So, I checked the website. Under construction. I checked their socials. Just one post. A photo of Tyler in front of a graffiti wall captioned, "Change begins here. No turning back. No updates, no initiatives, no proof." I asked for a donation. Receipt, she laughed. What are you, the IRS? And right there, I knew. Something was off. But I didn't say anything. I just started watching. She had new clothes, not department store markdowns, designer brands, new jewelry, more wine in the fridge, less food on the table, more perfume, less eye contact. And then one night I got home early from a double shift. She wasn't expecting me. I walked in, and she was on speakerphone with Tyler. The second she heard the door, she panicked. I gotta go. Ethan just walked in. Click. I asked. Everything okay? She said it was just a logistics call. Someone's building a flyer template. At 11:23 p.m. in hushed tones. That night, she crawled into bed like everything was fine. But I lay awake listening to her breathing and wondering what else she was burying under that soft, activist voice. The next morning, I tried again. Babe, can we talk about the 10 grand? She snapped. You're obsessed with money. I'm trying to change the world and you're counting cents like a banker. No, I was counting trust, and it was bankrupt. So I started checking the bank account. $9,950 wired to an entity labeled HC Solutions LLC. No address, no memo. I Googled the LLC, nothing. I dug deeper. Registered business databases, non-profit records, charity watchdogs, no record, no registry, no EIN number, nothing. And that's when I realized Hope Catalyst wasn't a charity. It was a front. I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Not yet, because when you're standing in a burning house, you don't scream. You look for the gasoline. So I went hunting, and the first thing I found was a transaction on her credit card to the Paxton, a high-end downtown hotel, booked under her name. 2 nights valet included. And the next thing I found was a voicemail. An accidental one, a pocket dial she'd left me after hanging up. In the background, Tyler's voice, and hers. Laughing, he said, "He really gave up 10 grand? Just like that?" she replied. "He's a nurse, soft-hearted, thinks we're saints." Then a kiss, then silence. I sat there, phone still glowing in my hand, heart sinking like it had swallowed a lead anchor. Because now I had proof, but I wasn't ready to strike. I needed everything, every email, every record, a bulletproof trail. Because if I was going to burn this lie down, I was going to make sure no one rebuilt it again. My patience flatlined less than my marriage. Every shift I stitched people back together, only to go home and watch. Everything fall apart in silence, but I stayed quiet, because silence gave me access, and access gave me time. While Sophie kept up appearances, posting quotes about justice and self-love, I started documenting. First, the bank records. I printed every transfer, highlighted dates, amounts, recipients. The big one was the $9,850 to HC Solutions LLC, a ghost entity with no tax ID. But the next charge, buried deep in her statement, caught me harder, $1,275 at the Reserve Penthouse Spa, billed the same weekend she said she was volunteering at the housing drive. I searched the spa's site, photos of rooftop jacuzzis, champagne trays, his and her treatments. I knew she wasn't alone. I checked her cloud backups. Yes, I went there. She'd left her old iPad logged in, a photo album named Fieldwork. Inside, not eviction centers, not shelters. Just pictures of Tyler in button-downs, standing next to imported wine bottles and sushi platters. One video. Them dancing. Her laugh like I'd never heard it in months. I watched that laugh, and I let it harden something in me. Next, I ran a business search on HC Solutions LLC. The address linked to a P.O. Box. Owner, Tyler Colburn, not a nonprofit, not even a holding company, just a for-profit consulting scam listed as media outreach. I traced 5 donor names she had mentioned. In conversation, none of them had contributed. In fact, one said, "I backed out after reading their pitch. It sounded shady." Everything pointed to the same truth. This was a 2-person con, and the worst part? She wasn't being fooled. She was in on it. I visited a real nonprofit for comparison. The director showed me paperwork, clear financials, partners, receipts, tax, status. In under 10 minutes, she gave me more transparency than Sophie had in 6 weeks. I started building a file, a real one. Printed, bound, time-stamped. Every page had a date, a dollar, a lie, and then came the final piece. I called a friend of mine, cyber analyst at the hospital. I asked him, off the record, if he could look into a Gmail address I'd seen in Sophie's email threads. Within 2 hours, he confirmed. The same Gmail had been linked to multiple false nonprofits registered and dissolved within 18 months. Guess who the admin was? Sophie Miles. My wife. The girl who cried over political documentaries, who said we needed to be better than apathy. She wasn't better. She was just better at hiding it. I submitted the full file to a fraud investigator, quietly, anonymously. They said they'd open a case, asked me to remain silent for now. I agreed, but inside me, a fire had started. Not anger. Clarity. I wasn't married to an idealist. I was married to a manipulator, and I was done pretending not to know the difference. After the report was filed, my life split in two. At the hospital, I was still Nurse Ethan. Calm, focused, holding lives together with latex gloves and late-night caffeine. At home, I was a ghost, haunting the ruins of a marriage only one of us thought was still standing. Sophie had no idea what I'd done. The investigation was active but discreet. I got updates from a caseworker at the fraud unit, short, clinical emails confirming they'd frozen Tyler's accounts and begun tracking suspicious transactions. They'd requested surveillance from a luxury property where charity meetings were held. But while the system moved slow, Sophie kept moving fast. She hosted an event, small, invite only, in a borrowed loft downtown. I wasn't invited. She said it was activist space, emotionally sensitive. I said nothing, just smiled and helped her carry out the printed flyers she made. They read, "Radical compassion starts with risk." I remember thinking, no, it starts with lies. That night, I parked across the street and watched from the car. I saw Tyler arrive, tight black shirt, designer shoes, arm around Sophie like he'd never been the side character in our life. They posed for a photo under fairy lights. She kissed his cheek. No hiding now. Just confidence, or delusion. The next morning, I got a call from the investigator. His voice was sharper than before. "We're moving forward. We have enough for criminal inquiry. You may see press in the coming days. Please don't interfere." I asked what tipped the scale. He said, "Your wife and Mr. Colburn just deposited another $6,000. We're tracing it back to a different donor, potentially a minor." A minor. They were getting bolder. And worse. Still, I said nothing. I waited until one afternoon, just before my shift, a friend from the housing board where Sophie used to volunteer messaged me. "Ethan, why did you guys dissolve Hope Catalyst?" "I didn't. What are you talking about?" "It's gone. Website shut down. Instagram wiped. Emails bouncing. Is everything okay?" That was the crack before the collapse. Later that week, a news story broke on a local blog. Fraud investigation opens into housing nonprofit run by local activist couple. They didn't name names, but people recognized the faces. Screenshots from Sophie's now deleted posts, Tyler's public rants. The blog went viral, and Sophie panicked. I walked in from work that night to find her pacing the kitchen, phone in one, hand glass of wine in the other, laptop open to 5 tabs of crisis control articles. Someone leaked. It's all over. They're twisting it, saying we're thieves. We're not thieves. I said nothing, just watched her unravel. She looked at me like I'd become a stranger. "Are you even going to defend me?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "Are you even going to confess?" Her face shifted. Cold. Hard. As if the girl who once cried during TED Talks had been buried beneath ambition long ago. She snapped, "I'm the one who tried to do something, Ethan. While you punched time cards, I was building something bigger than both of us." I walked out, not in rage, in peace. Because the house of cards she built with charm and deception was swaying now, and the wind was about to blow harder. It was a Tuesday. Was charting vitals for a post-op patient when I heard my name echo through the ER waiting area like a bad dream breaking through glass. "Ethan, you coward!" I looked up, and there she was, Sophie, hair wild, eyes red, face raw with rage, storming past security with the desperation of someone who realized their mask had finally slipped. The waiting room froze. Patients turned. My coworkers glanced at me like, "Do you know her?" I knew her. Not the woman screaming now, but the one who used to hum to herself while editing flyers on the couch. that Sophie was gone. She slammed a folder on the counter, scattering intake forms. You reported. You ruined everything. I walked out slowly. No panic, no shame, just controlled breath and calm steps. You need to leave, I said. They're coming for me, Ethan. We were supposed to be changing lives. Now I'm being investigated like a criminal. I motioned to security, who stepped forward, but I held up my hand. Let her talk, I said, because it was time. Everyone was watching. Doctors, interns, 2 paramedics chewing on vending machine peanuts like it was live theater. You think you're some hero? You sabotaged your own wife. And that's when I reached into my locker, pulled out my folder, the one with every screenshot, every dollar trail, every digital receipt. I opened it to page 1, laid it flat on the counter. You sabotaged yourself. You drained our emergency fund. You built a fake nonprofit with your ex. You faked receipts, and I have proof of every single transfer. She looked stunned, but she wasn't done. Tyler believed in the mission. You never did. I pulled out the hotel invoice under her name, the same weekend she'd claimed she was leading a women's march. I pulled out the voice transcript where she and Tyler joked about how easily I gave up the money. I pulled out the business, registry, HC Solutions LLC, tied to Tyler's account, not a 501c3, never even filed. And then I leaned in. I didn't ruin your mission. I exposed your performance. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man she married. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she thought I'd just let it slide. Most people do when they're told it was for a good cause. Security let her out. She didn't fight it. Not now. And as the glass doors closed behind her, someone in the waiting room clapped. Awkward. Hesitant. But it broke the tension. Then another joined in. Then another. I turned back to my shift, finished my notes, checked vitals like nothing had happened. But something had. Everything had, because that confrontation wasn't revenge. It was release. And what came next? That was only the beginning. The day after Sophie's meltdown at the hospital, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Calls, texts, emails. Not from her, but from everyone else. People who'd donated, people who'd followed her activism journey, people who believed in Hope Catalyst. Is it true? Were you really married to her? What did she do with the money? And the worst, I gave her $500 last month. I thought I was helping veterans. My hands shook as I responded, not with anger but with links, files, screenshots. I stopped being a husband. I became a witness. Later that evening, I got a call from the case officer. We got a warrant for Tyler Colburn. The feds are stepping in wire fraud, charity misrepresentation, potential conspiracy. And Sophie? She's named as a secondary operator. She's not innocent. The next morning, Tyler was arrested outside a yoga studio in Silver Lake, wearing sunglasses, holding a smoothie, like a man completely detached from consequence. They seized his car, laptop, phone, and when they cracked his cloud account, the evidence poured out. Photos of trips, billed as site visits, bank transfers labeled admin fees, even a mock-up of a second nonprofit they were planning to launch called Rise and Shelter. But the real knife came from a text conversation between him and Sophie. She wrote, "Ethan's never going to check. He's too trusting. Nurse brain." He replied, "Then let's drain it and bounce. He'll get over it." That thread, just 14 lines long, turned her from suspected accomplice to active conspirator. The media caught on. Local stations ran the story. Her photo, once posted beside fundraisers and petitions, was now tagged "Local activist linked to charity fraud." The backlash was fast, brutal, and loud. Her Instagram lost 20,000 followers overnight, speaking gigs canceled, brand deals revoked. Her inbox flooded with demands for refunds and apologies. But the real collapse came at her parents' house. They called me, her father, who once toasted us at our wedding. "Ethan, we're mortified. Sophie won't talk to us. We had no idea. Can you tell us what's going on?" I didn't yell. I emailed them a zip file titled, "What You Weren't Supposed to See." 2 days later, they drained their savings to cover Sophie's initial legal defense. $46,000 gone. They weren't just stunned, they were broken. And Sophie? She sent me a one-line email. "You didn't have to destroy me." I didn't respond, because I didn't destroy her. She chose this. I just held up a mirror. The last time I saw her was in a news clip, leaving court, sunglasses on, mouth tight, reporters shouting questions. "Did you know the charity was fake? Were you romantically involved with your co-founder? Did you manipulate your husband?" She said nothing. And honestly, what could she say? Because the world knew now, and for once, she couldn't spin the truth. The silence after scandal is a strange kind of peace. No more shouting, no more begging, no more pretending, just space. Wide, hollow space where a marriage used to live. After Sophie's indictment, I packed what was left of my life into 3 boxes, my scrubs, my journals, and a folder full of receipts labeled Truth. I moved into a modest apartment above a bakery, the kind of place that smells like cinnamon at 5 a.m., the kind of place that doesn't ask questions. People stopped me in the halls at work, not with pity, but with this quiet, surprised respect. They'd seen what happened. They'd read the articles. They knew I hadn't just survived it. I handled it. The court seized most of the stolen money, and a few months later, I got an envelope from the restitution board. $8,300 recovered, with a note that read disbursed from seized assets linked to HC Solutions LLC. I stared at the check for a long time, not because of the money, but because it was real. Proof that even in betrayal, something can come back. But I didn't keep it. I donated it to an actual housing charity I'd researched myself. Transparent, verified, real people, real outcomes. Then I volunteered. Every Sunday, cleaning units, running meds, prepping meals. They never asked about my story, and I never told them, because this time, I didn't need a spotlight. Sophie's trial dragged on. Plea deals, depositions, news, stories that slowly faded from page 1 to nothing. Her family sold their second home to cover mounting legal bills. Her ex, Tyler, took a plea. Months in federal custody. And Sophie? Probation. Restitution. Social ruin. But I didn't follow it too closely. Not anymore. Because obsessing over the wreckage doesn't rebuild anything. And that's what I was doing now. Rebuilding. I joined a trauma mentorship program for new nurses. Started training a golden retriever named Juno. Spent Thursday nights reading instead of dissecting lies. And one day, in the mailroom of the charity, an old woman handed me a note. Handwritten, folded twice. She said, "This is from my granddaughter." She says, "Thank you for keeping the lights on." It hit me harder than anything Sophie ever said, because it was honest, it was earned, it was real. This wasn't just about recovering money, it was about reclaiming meaning. And maybe that's what betrayal leaves behind if you're lucky, not bitterness, but clarity, the kind that burns away illusions and leaves only what's solid. So here's my story, not of a nurse who got fooled, but of a man who chose truth when love turned into manipulation. And, in the end, she lost a lie, and I found a life.